The stars looked cold and distant from the viewport of the small scout ship. Captain James Walker's hands gripped the controls so tight his knuckles turned white. He had just watched humanity's best hope for peace die in a flash of light. "Those arrogant monsters," he whispered, still seeing the explosion replay in his mind. The diplomatic vessel, carrying Earth's finest representatives, had been obliterated without warning. Just like that. 73 lives snuffed out because the Vex Imperium didn't consider humans worth talking to. The meeting had started badly. Supreme Commander Krell, leading the Vex delegation, had looked at the human representatives with four cold, calculating eyes. The Vex commander's gray, scaled skin had tensed with what Walker later realized was disgust. "Your species has spread too far, too fast," Krell had declared through the translation system. "Primitives should know their place." Earth's ambassador had tried to explain that humanity sought only peaceful coexistence and trade. The Vex commander's response was simple: surrender the outer colonies or face extinction. When the humans refused, Krell made a small gesture with one clawed hand. That's when the Vex escort ships opened fire. Only Walker's scout ship, running dark on the edge of the system for security protocols, had survived to tell the tale. Now, as he punched in the emergency jump coordinates for Earth, Walker's mind raced. The Vex Imperium controlled dozens of star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities. Their fleets were vast, with warships that could crack planets. And the worst part, the Galactic Council, the loose alliance of older species that maintained order in this sector, would do nothing. Humans were newcomers, barely a century into faster-than-light travel. The Council considered them unproven, a chaotic element in their carefully balanced galaxy. Captain's log, emergency entry. Walker spoke to the ship's recorder. "First contact with the Vex Imperium has failed. They demand complete surrender of our outer colonies. When refused, they destroyed our diplomatic vessel. All hands lost." His voice cracked slightly. "Earth must prepare for war." The ship's computer beeped a warning as it detected energy signatures. 3 Vex scout ships had picked up his trail. Walker cursed under his breath as he shut down all non-essential systems. His scout vessel was fast but lightly armed. He couldn't win a fight against 3 enemy ships. A risky plan formed in his mind. Walker swung the ship toward a nearby gas giant, its swirling storms visible even from this distance. The Vex ships followed, closing the gap with alarming speed. "Let's see how well you track an atmospheric disturbance," he muttered, plunging his ship toward the planet's upper atmosphere. The scout ship shuddered violently as it hit the outer gases. Warning lights flashed across his console as the hull temperature spiked. The Vex ships followed without hesitation. They were confident, too confident. Walker smiled grimly as he cut his engines and let the ship drop deeper into the gas layers. The temperature outside rose dangerously, but the human ship was built with atmospheric entry in mind. The Vex vessels, designed for void combat, began to struggle in the increasing pressure and heat. Walker watched his sensors as one enemy ship broke off, its hull integrity compromised. The other 2 pressed on, determined to eliminate the witness. At precisely the right moment, Walker fired his engines at full power, using the planet's swirling storms as cover. He shot past the confused Vex ships and back toward clear space. By the time they realized what had happened, Walker had reached jump distance. As the stars stretched into lines around his ship, Walker set course for Earth. Humanity needed to know what they were facing. They had to prepare, to build, to adapt. The Vex Imperium had just declared war on the wrong species. 6 months had passed since the failed first contact. Earth had changed. Factories worked day and night. Training centers operated around the clock. Humanity prepared for war while the Vex slowly but surely pushed through the outer colonies. Captain James Walker stood in the massive underground hangar and stared up at mankind's answer to the Vex threat. The UEA's Defiant looked like nothing ever built by human hands before. Its hull gleamed under the bright lights, smooth curves broken by weapon ports and sensor arrays. Though smaller than the massive Vex dreadnoughts, the ship carried humanity's best hope for survival. "She's ready, Captain," a voice said beside him. Chief Engineer Morgan Bell wiped grease from her hands with an old rag. Her red hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes showing the long hours she had put into the ship. "Well, as ready as she'll ever be without full testing." Walker nodded. "We don't have time for full testing. The Vex just took New Mars. That's the 4th colony this month." They walked together toward the ship, passing teams of workers making final adjustments. Project Thunderchild, they called it. A crash program combining human engineering with bits of alien technology recovered from crashed Vex ships. The Defiant was the first of its class, and possibly the last if they couldn't slow the enemy advance. "The main gun works," Bell said. "That's the important part. The shield system is at 85% capacity. Engines are fully operational, but the targeting computers still have issues with the long-range weapons, and the cloaking system can only run for 3 minutes before overheating." "It will have to be enough," Walker replied. "The President is addressing the United Earth Alliance in 2 hours. After that, we launch." The bridge of the Defiant was a hive of activity when Walker arrived for final preparations. Screens lit up with data as crew members ran system checks. At the tactical station stood Lieutenant Alex Reed, a young officer whose family had died when the Vex hit the Titan colony. Reed's face was a mask of controlled anger as he tested the weapon systems. "Lieutenant Reed, status report," Walker called as he took his position in the captain's chair. "All weapons online, sir. Missile tubes loaded. Main cannon charged and ready." Reed's voice was steady despite the pain Walker knew he carried. "We're as ready to kill Vex as we'll ever be." Walker studied the bridge crew, 20 men and women representing the best of Earth's military forces. They had trained in simulators for months, preparing for a fight against an enemy with superior technology and numbers. Their only advantages were surprise and human creativity. "Attention all hands," Walker spoke into the ship-wide communication system. "This is the captain. In 1 hour, we launch on humanity's first offensive mission against the Vex Imperium. I won't lie to you. Our odds aren't good. The enemy outnumbers us. Their technology exceeds ours in many areas." He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. "But they don't understand us. They see humans as primitive, chaotic, unpredictable. They're right. And that's our strength. We'll do what they don't expect. Fight how they don't anticipate." The Defiant carries not just weapons, but the spirit of humanity, our refusal to surrender, our ability to adapt, our determination to survive. The launch countdown began. Deep beneath the lunar surface, massive doors slowly opened to reveal the stars. The Defiant's engines hummed with building power. "We've lost 40% of our colonies," Walker continued. "Millions of lives. But today, we start taking the fight to them. Today, the Vex learned that humans don't go quietly." The ship lifted smoothly from its cradle as cheers erupted from the control center. On the main screen, Earth hung beautiful and blue against the blackness of space. The world they would protect at all costs. "Set course for the Proxima system," Walker ordered. "Maximum speed. It's time to introduce ourselves properly to the Vex Imperium." The Defiant surged forward, leaving Earth behind as it prepared for its first battle. Humanity's counterattack had begun. The Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Proxima system. On the bridge, Walker studied the tactical display. 3 Vex patrol ships moved in a perfect triangle formation, scanning the asteroid belt where human miners had once worked. "They're so predictable," Walker said quietly. "Same patrol pattern every 6 hours. Same formation. Same everything." Lieutenant Reed nodded at the tactical station. "That's their weakness, sir. The Vex think in straight lines. They don't adapt well." Walker turned to Chief Engineer Bell. "Is the plasma venting system ready?" Bell grinned. "Ready and waiting, Captain. Though I still think it's crazy." "Crazy is what they won't expect." Walker turned back to the main screen. Helm, take us in. Full stealth mode. Let's hide behind that large asteroid at coordinates 227 by 84. The Defiant moved silently through space, its experimental cloaking system bending light around the hull. They'd reached the position without detection. The massive asteroid provided both cover and the next stage of Walker's plan. Now we wait, he said. 2 hours passed before the Vex patrol ships approached their position, still in perfect formation. Walker leaned forward in his chair. Begin plasma venting sequence. Aim between us and their scanners. Belle's fingers flew across her console, venting in 3, 2, 1. The Defiant released superheated plasma from its engines in a controlled burst. The cloud spread rapidly in the zero gravity, creating a massive energy distortion between the ship and the approaching Vex patrol. Their sensors will read that as a natural radiation pocket from the asteroid, Belle explained. Nothing to investigate. Walker nodded. Perfect. Now for part 2. Lieutenant Reed, arm kinetic projectiles. Target the center ship's engine section. Armed and targeted. Sir, wait for my signal. Walker watched as the Vex patrol moved closer to the plasma cloud. Fire. The Defiant's railguns launched metal slugs at incredible speed. The projectiles tore through the plasma cloud, which masked their energy signature. By the time the Vex sensors detected the incoming threat, it was too late. The center ship's engines exploded in a brilliant flash. Before the other 2 vessels could react, Reed fired again, disabling the weapons systems on the second ship. Full power, Walker ordered. Take us around the asteroid at maximum thrust. Hit the third ship from behind. The human battleship surged forward, using the asteroid's gravity to slingshot around at tremendous speed. The maneuver would have torn apart most ships, but the Defiant's reinforced hull held strong. They emerged behind the third Vex vessel, which was still turning to face the threat to its companions. Main cannon charge, Reed reported. Fire. The Defiant's spinal-mounted weapon unleashed a beam of concentrated energy that sliced through the Vex ship's shields. The alien vessel split apart, secondary explosions rippling along its hull. Second ship is attempting to transmit a distress signal, the communications officer reported. Jam it, Walker ordered. Then target their communication array. Within minutes, the battle was over. 3 Vex patrol ships destroyed or disabled with minimal damage to the Defiant. The crew cheered, but Walker remained focused. Board the damaged ship, he ordered. I want their navigation data. We need to know their fleet movements. 4 hours later, the Defiant's computer systems processed the stolen information. Walker and his senior officers gathered in the tactical room to review the findings. They've established supply bases in every system they've taken, Reed observed, pointing at the star map. But look at this traffic pattern. They're getting resources from somewhere else too. Walker studied the data. Some of these ships are coming from neutral systems, systems that claimed they wouldn't get involved. Belle shook her head in disgust. So much for neutrality. They're helping the Vex destroy us. Knowledge is power, Walker said. Now we know who our real enemies are. And more importantly, we know their ship movements, their patrol schedules, their refueling patterns. He looked at his officers with determination. The Vex don't change. They don't adapt. They follow the same patterns, the same tactics that have worked for them against more predictable species. Reed smiled for the first time since Walker had known him. But we're not predictable. Exactly. Walker pointed to a large Vex supply depot on the map. And that's why our next target will be this supply base. They'll never expect a single human ship to attack a fortified position, which is precisely why we'll do it. The officers nodded in agreement. The Defiant had drawn first blood. The real fight was just beginning. Smoke filled the corridors of the Defiant as damage control teams worked to contain the fires. Their raid on the Vex supply depot had been successful, but not without cost. The ship limped through space, its engines running at half power as they searched for a place to hide and make repairs. Status report, Walker demanded, wiping blood from a cut above his eye. Hull breach on decks 4 and 6, contained by emergency force fields. Vel reported from her damaged console. Main power at 48%. Weapons systems operational, but the targeting computer is fried. We have 14 injured crew members, 3 critical. Walker nodded grimly. The supply depot had been more heavily defended than the stolen data suggested. They had destroyed it, but barely escaped with their lives. Any sign of pursuit? He asked Reed. Negative, Captain. I think we lost them in the nebula. Reed paused, studying his scanner. Wait, I'm picking up something ahead. It's not Vex. The energy signature is different. Walker tensed. Battle stations. Charge whatever weapons we can. But as they approached the energy signature, a strange signal came through on all frequencies. It wasn't in any language the computer recognized, yet somehow it began to translate itself, adapting to human communication patterns. Defiant vessel, this is the Nerathi observation ship Eternal Light. We offer sanctuary. Follow our beacon. Walker hesitated. No human had ever heard of the Nerathi. It could be a trap, Reed warned. Bell studied her readings. Their technology is unlike anything I've seen. Far more advanced than even the Vex. After a moment's thought, Walker made his decision. Follow the beacon, but keep weapons hot, just in case. They followed the signal to a small, unremarkable moon orbiting a gas giant. As they approached, part of the moon's surface seemed to shimmer and then disappear, revealing a hidden docking bay large enough for the Defiant. Once inside, the bay sealed behind them. A delegation waited as Walker and his senior officers disembarked. The aliens were tall and slender with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Their eyes were large and entirely white, without pupils. One stepped forward. I am Toran of the Nerathi. We have been watching your conflict with interest. Walker stood tall despite his injuries. Why reveal yourselves now? Because you survived, Toran said simply. Most species fall quickly to the Vex. You have resisted for months, with inferior technology and numbers. This interests us. The Nerathi led them through crystalline corridors to a chamber filled with holographic displays showing battles across dozens of star systems. The Vex have been eliminating what they call chaotic species for thousands of years, Toran explained. Species that evolve unpredictably, that value creativity and individuality over conformity. Like humans, Walker realized. Precisely. The Galactic Council tolerates this because the Vex brings stability. Predictability. Toran's expression was unreadable. We Nerathi are ancient, but few in number. We observe, we record, but direct intervention is prohibited by old treaties. So why help us now? Bell asked. We can offer intelligence and sanctuary while your ship repairs. And perhaps, Toran hesitated, we can share coordinates to a weapons cache from the last creative species that fought the Vex. Walker's eyes widened. What happened to them? They were defeated, but they came closer than any before. Toran gestured to another holographic display. Their weapons and technology were unconventional, like your tactics. The display showed devices and ship designs unlike anything Walker had seen before. Weapons that bent space itself, shields that adapted to enemy fire, engines that used dimensional shifting instead of conventional propulsion. Why give this to us? Walker asked, suspicious. Balance. Toran replied, the galaxy needs both order and chaos to thrive. Too much of either leads to stagnation or destruction. The Vex and their allies seek perfect order. You represent the necessary chaos. Reed studied the alien weapons with hunger in his eyes. With this technology, we might have a real chance. Walker extended his hand to Toran in a human gesture of agreement. Then we accept your help, and when our ship is repaired, we'll retrieve these weapons. The alien mimicked the handshake awkwardly. There is something else you should know, Captain Walker. The Vex Supreme Commander has taken personal interest in your ship. They now call you the Unpredictable One. It is the highest insult in their language. Walker smiled for the first time in days. On Earth, we'd take that as a compliment. The Defiant hung silently in space near the edge of Vex territory. Its hull now featured strange geometric patterns from the alien technology they had recovered. The weapons cache had been exactly where Torrin said it would be, filled with devices beyond human understanding. Yet somehow, Bell and her team had made them work with the ship's systems. Approaching the communications hub, Reed announced quietly, "No sign they've detected us." Walker nodded. The cloaking system, enhanced with the recovered technology, was working perfectly. They were deep in enemy territory on their most dangerous mission yet, to steal information directly from a Vex command center. "Remember," Walker said to his bridge crew, "we need their command protocols and communication encryption keys, in and out, as fast as possible." The Vex hub loomed ahead, a massive structure shaped like a perfect hexagon. Hundreds of data streams flowed in and out, connecting to ships and bases across Vex space. "Take us in behind that supply freighter," Walker ordered. "We'll use its signal traffic as cover." As they approached, Bell activated the new scanning system. "Captain, I'm getting readings from inside the hub. Their central computer core is 3 levels down from the main docking bay. Any sign of heavy defenses?" "Nothing unexpected." Bell frowned at her console. "That's strange. For such an important facility, security seems minimal." Walker felt a twist of unease. They don't expect anyone to attack them here. It's too deep in their territory, too protected by their fleets. "Or it's a trap," Reed suggested. Walker considered their options. The information they needed was vital. Earth's resistance was holding, but barely. They needed to know the Vex command structure, their plans, their weaknesses. "We proceed as planned," Walker decided. "But we double the boarding team and keep the engines hot for immediate departure." The Defiant slipped behind the freighter, matching its speed and trajectory perfectly. As the larger ship docked with the hub, the human vessel moved to the opposite side of the structure, attaching to an emergency airlock meant for repairs. Walker led the boarding team himself. 20 crew members in battle armor, armed with weapons enhanced by the recovered technology. They cut through the airlock and entered the hub. Surprisingly empty, Reed whispered as they moved through dim corridors. "Where are all the Vex?" They encountered only a few guards, easily neutralized with stun weapons. The lack of resistance made Walker increasingly nervous, but they continued toward the central computer core. The core itself was a marvel of alien engineering, a crystalline structure pulsing with blue-green light. Bell immediately connected their data devices to the Vex system. "Download in progress," she reported. "This is incredible. They store everything here, fleet movements, command protocols, even their historical records." Walker kept his weapon ready. "How much longer?" 2 minutes for the essential data. 5 for everything we can get." "Take 5, Walker decided. "We may never get this chance again." But as the 4th minute ticked by, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and sealed doors began to close. "We've been detected," Reed shouted. "No," Bell said, eyes wide as she read the incoming data. "It's not us. The hub is going into lockdown because of another security breach on the far side." Walker made a split-second decision. "Complete the download. Reed, take half the team and investigate. We might be able to use this distraction." Reed nodded and moved out with 10 crew members. Walker and the others guarded Bell as she finished the download. Just as she disconnected from the Vex computer, Reed's voice came through the communicator, tight with tension. "Captain, you need to see this. Section 12, detention level." Walker left Bell with guards and hurried to the location. What he found stunned him. Reed and his team stood before a cell where 3 Vex guards lay unconscious. Inside the cell was a human woman in torn clothing, her face bruised but defiant. "Who are you?" Walker demanded. Chief Engineer Lisa Bell, from the UES Challenger. Her eyes widened. You're human military. Actual human military. Walker felt his blood run cold. Bell, his Bell, stood beside him now, having followed despite his orders. That's impossible, his Bell whispered. The Challenger was destroyed in the first wave. No survivors. That's what they wanted you to think, the prisoner said bitterly. They've been keeping humans alive, studying us, trying to understand how we think. There are others, dozens of us, on different VEX facilities. A new alarm sounded, more urgent than before. We've got company, Reed warned. Multiple hostiles approaching. Walker made another instant decision. Get her out. Get everyone out. Back to the ship now. As they fought their way back through suddenly crowded corridors, Walker realized their mission had just changed dramatically. They now had not only vital intelligence, but also living proof of VEX atrocities, and knowledge that human prisoners needed rescue. The real war was just beginning. The stolen VEX data illuminated screens throughout the war room deep beneath Earth's surface. Military leaders from across the United Earth Alliance stood in stunned silence as Walker presented his findings. The VEX are planning a final assault on Earth in 2 weeks, Walker explained, pointing to the projected fleet movements. Their supreme commander will personally lead a force of over 300 warships. They believe this will end human resistance once and for all. General Richards, commander of Earth's defense forces, shook his head grimly. We have maybe 40 ships that can fight, even counting the new vessels built using your Defiance technology. It's not enough. Lisa Bell, the rescued engineer from the Challenger, stepped forward. Her recovery had been remarkable in the months since her rescue. With respect, General, numbers aren't everything. I spent 6 months as their prisoner. I know how they think. She gestured to the display. The VEX follow strict command hierarchies. Every action requires approval from above. Without clear orders, individual commanders freeze, waiting for instructions. Walker nodded, understanding forming. If we could disrupt their command structure. Exactly, Lisa continued. And there's more. During my captivity, I learned that several species in the Galactic Council have private doubts about the VEX. They follow them out of fear, not loyalty. Walker's chief engineer, Morgan Bell, had been studying the data with intense focus. Now she looked up with excitement. The communication protocols we stole. We could use them to broadcast evidence of what the VEX have been doing. The imprisonment of humans, the destruction of creative species. Show the Council what they've been supporting. General Richards frowned. Even if other species sympathize, they won't risk VEX retaliation by helping us. They might, Walker countered, if they see we have a chance of winning. If we can prove humans aren't just fighting a hopeless last stand. The room fell silent as everyone considered the impossible odds they faced. What if, Walker said slowly, instead of trying to match their fleet, we change the battlefield entirely? Make them fight where we choose, not where they expect. In the days that followed, the greatest engineering effort in human history unfolded, while the Defiant carried diplomatic messages to secretly sympathetic council members. Earth prepared its defense. Massive construction ships moved through the asteroid belt, placing devices developed from the ancient cache technology. Engineers worked around the clock, adapting the Defiant's innovations to the rest of the human fleet. The diplomatic efforts bore unexpected fruit. 3 species, the Nerethi, the mercantile Drakkar, and the insectoid Vril, sent secret communications promising aid once battle was joined. Others remained neutral but provided intelligence on VEX movements. 2 weeks later, Walker stood on the bridge of the Defiant as it joined Earth's assembled fleet in the shadow of Jupiter. The human vessels looked different now. No two exactly alike, each modified with unique systems and weapons that would confuse VEX targeting algorithms. VEX fleet has entered the system, Reeve announced from Tactical. 317 ships, approaching in standard formation. Walker opened a channel to all human vessels. This is Captain Walker. The enemy believes today will be the end of humanity. They expect us to make our stand at Earth, to fight a conventional battle we cannot win. He paused, looking at the determined faces of his crew. Instead, we fight here, among Jupiter's moons, where we've prepared the battlefield. Each ship has its assigned targets and unique tactics. The Vex expect uniformity and predictability. Show them none. As the enemy fleet approached, thousands of devices hidden throughout the asteroid belt activated, creating a complex web of gravity distortions, sensor ghosts, and communication disruptions. The carefully ordered Vex formation began to waver as ships encountered unpredictable gravitational eddies. Now, Walker ordered. The human fleet burst from hiding, not as a single formation, but as dozens of small strike groups, each attacking from a different vector. The Defiant led the primary assault group directly toward the Vex command ship. On communication channels across the system, a message began broadcasting on all frequencies, using the Vex's own encryption protocols. Evidence of their atrocities played for all to see: the imprisonment of humans, the destruction of creative species, the secret agreements with council members. As the battle erupted across Jupiter's orbit, Walker smiled grimly. Let's show them what human unpredictability really means. Chaos reigned across the Jupiter battlefield. The human fleet moved in patterns no military strategist would consider rational, ships splitting apart only to regroup from unexpected vectors, vessels deliberately using the moons for gravitational slingshots, fighters cutting their engines to drift silently before powering up behind enemy ships. On the bridge of the Vex command ship, Supreme Commander Krell watched in growing frustration as his perfect formation disintegrated. They are not fighting according to any known doctrine, one of his officers complained. Their movements make no tactical sense, and yet they are effective, Krell hissed. Adapt our formations. Destroy the human vessels one by one. But adaptation did not come easily to the Vex. Their hierarchical command structure, normally a strength, became a weakness as captains waited for specific orders rather than responding to rapidly changing conditions. The Defiant led a group of 5 ships directly toward the Vex command vessel, weaving through enemy fire with seemingly impossible maneuvers. Walker stood calmly on the bridge, issuing orders as explosions blossomed across space around them. The command ship shields are still too strong, Reed reported from Tactical. Our weapons can't penetrate. Walker nodded. Execute Maneuver Thunderchild. The Defiant suddenly released thousands of small metallic objects from its cargo bay. The objects spread rapidly, forming a cloud of reflective particles around the human ships. Vex sensors are confused, Bell reported with satisfaction. They're reading each particle as a potential target. As expected, the Vex defense systems began firing automatically at the cloud, their energy weapons creating a spectacular light show as they hit the particles, but missing the actual ships hidden within. The Defiant pushed through, closing rapidly on the command ship. But instead of firing, Walker ordered all weapons powered down. Activate the gravity pulse, he commanded. Bell's fingers flew across her console, pulse charging. This will only work once, Captain. Once is all we need. The Defiant shuddered as the experimental device, based on technology from the ancient weapons cache, released a targeted gravitational wave. The wave hit the Vex command ship shields, not damaging them but momentarily aligning their frequency with the Defiant's own shields. Transport team. Now, Walker ordered. In the Defiant's teleportation chamber, a squad of soldiers led by Lieutenant Reed activated their devices. Using the brief shield synchronization, they transported directly onto the Vex command ship, an impossible feat under normal circumstances. Walker watched the tactical display as Reed's team fought their way through the enemy vessel toward its bridge. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the tide was turning. 3 Nerathi warships had decloaked and joined the fight, their advanced weapons cutting through Vex ships with surgical precision. The mercantile Drakkar contributed a fleet of small, fast vessels that harassed the enemy's flanks. Most surprisingly, A message came through from the Galactic Council itself. "This is High Counselor Villain," a grade voice announced over the command frequency. "The Council has reviewed the evidence of Vex atrocities. We declare their actions unauthorized and criminal. All Council species are ordered to cease support for Vex operations immediately." On screens throughout the battle, Vex ships began powering down as their allied support crews abandoned their posts. Without their Council allies, many Vex vessels found themselves suddenly understaffed and vulnerable. "Bridge secured." Reed's voice came through the communicator, strained but triumphant. "Supreme Commander Krell is in custody." Walker allowed himself a small smile. Broadcast on all frequencies, using their command protocols. Moments later, across the entire Vex fleet, a message repeated in the Supreme Commander's own voice, captured and reconstructed from recordings. "All Vex vessels, this is Supreme Commander Krell. Stand down immediately. Cease all hostile actions." The effect was immediate. True to their rigid hierarchy, Vex ships began powering down weapons, their commanders awaiting further instructions that would never come. As the battle subsided, Walker opened a channel to Earth. "General Richards, this is Captain Walker. The Vex fleet has been neutralized. Repeat, the Vex fleet has been neutralized. Humanity's survival is assured." Cheers erupted across the bridge, across the fleet, across Earth as the news spread. Humanity had not just survived, they had turned the tide of galactic politics. In the days that followed, representatives from the Galactic Council arrived to negotiate peace terms. The Council acknowledged humanity's right to exist and expand, recognizing their creative unpredictability as an asset to galactic society rather than a threat. Throughout the Vex fleet, their communication systems continued to broadcast an emergency alert, one that would become legend in the annals of space warfare. "Caution, human battleship has arrived."